Welcome to the solo Final Fantasy XIV challenge. This is solo only, and from the very beginning, we've clawed our way past some of the most difficult fights this game can offer, all while never using the market board, parties, or NPC support, and using level sync or silence echo whenever it's possible. Again and again, I've been told this was impossible, but no matter how hard it got, we've always prevailed. And now, standing on the other side of the impossible trial, Susano, it's time to move forward towards our final goal, Endwalker. Maybe something stops us before then, brings this whole thing crashing down, but until we see that with our own hands, we continue down this long, winding road to whatever impossible wall comes next. June 16th, 2024, we entered Stormblood. Almost an entire year for one expansion, and today, we finish it. My duel with Xenos brings us to the post-patches, 4.1 to 4.55. 4 instances stand between us and Shadowbringers, and this video doesn't end until we've cleared them all. In the aftermath of our battle with Shinryu, the main quest, Stormblood, is complete, opening up a whole new world of items, the final tier for the expansion. Now we have access to the Tombstone gear. For a few thousand Tombstones of Poetics, a currency earned from Palace, Wondrous Tales, or clearing dungeons for the first time, we can buy the otherwise unobtainable Augmented Skaven gear. At eye level 400, this would be a huge boost to our power, or it should have been, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We lose determination for it, and we gain 11 vitality. Do we know what, Azure, do you know off the top of your head how much HP each vitality gives at level 70? Right now I have, no, I have to check at level 70. So I'm gonna level sync back into Alamigo for a brief moment just to check my HP. 1052 divided by 71. It's about 15 HP per vit right now. Yeah, that sounds about right. So 11 vitality isn't actually that much when you break it down to the per vit health. Playtime check now that Stormblood is done or not until post. No, you know what? You're right. That does deserve a playtime check. To complete Stormblood, 4.0 at least. We still have post Stormblood. But to complete 4.0 and to officially be over halfway through the solo challenge, now on the back half of the entire thing, my playtime is 32 days, 9 hours, and 36 minutes. 777 hours. That's ridiculous. So the Tombstone gear is going to be better. I don't know if it's going to be significant of a jump enough for me to want to grind out the Poetics for it, because I had to spend the Poetics on my materia. You are the most important, because with you, I can now finally start getting 7 of my Wondrous Tales basically guaranteed every single week. We'd finally reached a point where I could consistently tell if a Wondrous Tales book was worth completing, but it didn't last for very long. Yet another detail we'll talk about later. As one final celebration for the day, there's something else we have to unlock. We've dealt with solo for a long enough time, and now I have to do my namesake. I have some hunting to do. You better believe we're going for Rathalos. Yeah, no, they let me have early access to Monster Hunter Wilds. It was kind of crazy, you know? For legal purposes, this is a joke. This is not a copy of Monster Hunter Wilds. I'm hunting for one thing, the Rathalos mount. I am Wrath Games, after all. How can I say no to that? The Rathalos has some weird drop mechanics. There's a small chance anytime you hunt it to have a chest drop. Treasure chest? Oh my god! The chest can contain the Orchestrion roll, the Poogie minion, or the mount. Otherwise, you get scales from carving the tail after defeating the extreme version, and with 50 of those scales, you can trade them in for the mount. Are you giving me the gift of a mount for Solo's birthday? He's worth it. He's worth it. And the Orchestrion. Okay, you know what? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Ideally, we get lucky, but for now, I'm not going to do it all at once. Instead, we'll take our time and give it an attempt once per stream. With that, the revelry comes to a close, and we head off to start the real adventure. Just 3 quests away from our starting point, the first dungeon, the drowned city of Scala, is unlocked. With absolutely 0 changes to our gear, we enter as a level-synced paladin. In much the same way as Castromabania, the enemies along each path tore through our health. Unlike Warrior easily handling large groups of enemies, Paladin doesn't get to heal while doing damage, and the mana needed for healing meant I had to kill them one at a time rather than hitting them all at once. But we've gotten enough practice in with Paladin just to reach here. No single pull of enemies was going to stop me. 12 minutes spent, we've reached the first boss, the Kelpie. Speaking of Kelpies, did you you know, apparently kelpies could be found wearing a bridle, and if it was removed would exorcise the creature? Then supposedly you could brandish it at a person and turn them into a horse. Anyway, enough Wikipedia facts. Throughout the fight, the kelpie jumps to the side of the arena, casting Hydro Push or Hydro Pull, knocking you away or pulling you in towards the boss. Bloody Puddle drops a damaging zone we need to dodge during the push and pull. Torpedo Kick is a tank buster dealing 4,000 damage, and that is the entire fight. Boss dead, absolutely zero effort. See you later. Wow, that boss was almost as low effort as subscribing and hitting the like button. What do you mean? I didn't have to record this in post because I forgot? Come on, we're right at 50k, hit the button! A few weird rock hand guys later, we reach the second boss. The old one? Huh, me for real. Am I right, everybody? Am I right? Am I me when I me when my back? The old one uses a few dodgeable spells like Mystic Flame before starting the real mechanic. Order to Detonate spawns 4 subservients around the arena. For as long as they're alive, the boss is invulnerable. I don't like the look of this. If they aren't killed before the cast finishes, they each explode, dealing a really small amount of damage. Honestly, I wasted a lot of mitigation for that. Then, Shifting Light turns us into a Spriggan and repeats the order to detonate. Now, you could use your Spriggan attacks to instantly kill the subservients, or you could somehow not notice that you have attacks as a Spriggan, assume it's a party mechanic, and tank 10,000 damage. Oh, here it is. I found the button. Just in time, too, as the final order to detonate comes with enough subservience to instantly kill me if I don't take them down. Once again, an easy boss. Remembering the glory days of yore. I miss the transformation. Yeah, I learned about the removal of it during that last speed run. I really want to turn into the big guy again and just float over. That was so much fun. The transformation is you would turn into one of those big ghosts. Like you would turn into that guy there and just float over to the other side. It was cute. If you still had a heavy from the previous fight, the transform would time out midair and you'd fall to your death. I've never had that one happen. That sounds amazing. Killing the enemies throughout the dungeon has brought us down to 20 minutes remaining, and the final boss is within reach. Project Poison Tongue is the epitome of a final boss, taking all of the difficulties we faced in the dungeon so far and increasing it twofold. Which is to say, still 0. The spin hits everyone in the arena, dealing more damage the closer you are to the center. A donut AoE spawns, moving with the player it targets, meaning we can't get hit by it. Eye of Fire is a gaze mechanic that causes confusion if we don't look away. Cross of Chaos shoots a wave of damage and a plus from its target, dealing just about 2,000 damage. Then, watching the boss closely, he has 3 poses he can take. Tail raised and looking backwards is a tail swipe, hitting anything behind him. Raising a single claw into the air is a slash, cleaving anything in front of him, and both hands up, slightly bent over, means he's charging a massive laser beam that hits everything in a line in front of him. Those are the only attacks he has. With no major threat, 13 minutes later, Prodrick falls. And the drowned city of Scala is complete. I remembered nothing about this dungeon other than it was quick and easy, and thankfully this dungeon was quick and easy. What do you mean that was the hardest thing ever? We've been here for months? No, you're right, yeah, my mistake. I blanked it all out. It was so traumatic to have to get through this dungeon. It took quite a bit of time with less than 10 minutes remaining before we got kicked out, but that was by far the easiest dungeon we have ever done. Which also means there's nothing standing between us and the second instant. Nothing aside from some MSQ, that is. One tiny little accident later. No! We've reached our next fight, Castrum Fluminous, the only remaining trial in Stormblood, Tsukiyomi. First attempt is Warrior on level sync. Torment Unto Death is a tank buster, dealing 16,000 damage to its target and anyone in a cone behind them. Zashkia Sobi spawns dancing fans in a spiral around the arena. After a short delay, the fans explode in the order they landed, while Tsukiyomi casts Steel of the Underworld, cutting off half the arena with a damaging blast. Then, Midnight Haze spawns 2 tethered clouds at the east and west walls of the arena. The clouds slowly move in towards the center as Tsukiyomi casts Lead of the Underworld, a party stack dealing 20,000 damage. And if the clouds touch, they explode, doing 3000 damage and each applying a damage down for 30 seconds. The cloud explosion will also kill you through immunity. The goal is to kill the clouds, so they're targetable, meaning if I timed it right, I could use them and the boss to heal back up with raw intuition. Right after, she begins to cast Night Bloom, ending the first phase. Tsuyu lays in the center, summoning specters of her past to bash away at her, fueling her suffering. As they attack, the bar slowly fills. 4 total waves spawn. Her parents, the Garlean soldiers, Asahi, and, before we can see the last, she reaches 100% and ends the run. But this is probably a full death, no matter what. 5 million damage, I think that just did? The ad phase lasts long enough that we've survived the required 3 minutes for the echo and gained a 10% buff to our health and damage. With 40% echo, we just barely make it long enough to see the final specter, Xenos. As he spawns, we're thrown to the back of the arena and stunned for 13 seconds, ensuring our death. One more time, at the maximum buff of 50%, Xenos slashes away at Tsuyu before clashing with Gosetsu. The final stage is to kill Xenos' specter before she reaches 100%, but we're already there well before we reach this point. Even at the absolute strongest we could be, we failed. Level sync was impossible, and unfortunately, Silence Echo was weaker than my best level sync attempt, so that wasn't an option either. But maybe it was just Warrior that couldn't manage it. Maybe we just needed to rely on Paladin one more time. Level synced once again, Paladin is much weaker than Warrior against the ad phase, so yet another idea is gone. This is gonna be the first fight in a while that's forced an Epic Echo. Just to get an understanding on how strong we would have to be, I broke out our emergency button, the level 100 Pictomancer that got us through Susanoo, and entered on Epic Echo. Even with the overwhelming strength, even with pieces of level 100 armor, we're slaughtered before we can make any progress. We were backed into a corner. Our options were running out, and for the first time since the very beginning of the expansion, we're forced over to Epic Echo. Pictomancer couldn't survive, but I still had one last chance. I've yet to upgrade to the Skaven gear, the strongest we could access. But to get it, we need Poetics, and as of right now, we're starting at 0. Stopping in for Little Lady's Day to turn Solo into the pop star he was always meant to be, we make it through floors 40 to 60 on the objectively worst job for soloing Palace of the Dead, Astrologian. It's been a bit, but eventually I do have to hit floor 100 with this thing, as I definitely want to do, and am not being forced into. The Palace runs get us a little bit of Poetics, but right now our biggest problem for my warrior is damage. I could survive well enough, but if I can't kill the ads, surviving doesn't matter, meaning I need a new weapon, the most expensive item I could want at 600 Poetics. Thankfully, there's a weekly burst of Poetics from a piece of content I've neglected for a long time. The Masked Carnival is an arena that can only be entered by blue mages. Within these walls lies puzzle pieces disguised as monsters, and if you don't manage to figure it out, you're given a swift death. The fights can also have a weekly bonus on them, requiring some amount of challenge to be completed, and rewarding you with 440 Poetic Tombstones should you complete all 3 of them. You also get Poetics for clearing fights for the first time, but I did most of them before we left A Realm Reborn, so we won't get much from them now. The advanced challenge for the week used 10 ways to die and 4 faced as its modifiers. I have to use more than 2 spells and less than 10 to satisfy 10 ways to die, and I need 4 unique spells that all come from my face to satisfy 4 faced. Our face spells are Glower, Bad Breath, Sticky Tongue, and Flying Sardine, and using less than 10 spells is pretty easy, so this one goes down after 2 attempts. While we're on the topic of Blue Mage, we're in the endgame of Stormblood now, so I can finally get one of, if not the most powerful spell in the entire Blue Mage compendium, Ultra Vibration. Combining this with Ram's Voice to freeze our enemies, Ultra Vibration will instantly kill anything near me. The last 2 challenges are to win under a certain amount of time, and win at all. With that, we've got enough Poetics for an upgrade to our beloved Bill. Why is it a checkerboard? Am I playing chess on my axe? We're going back to the original build this time, and gear up for another face-off against Tsukiyama. Death after death, without ever getting a chance to kill Xenos, I had to come to terms with this. I may be a bit crazy, but I can see my own limits. There was no universe where I could do this on level sync or Silence Echo. We had to use every buff the game could give us, including the Epic Echo. While unsynced without restrictions, in Stormblood content, the Epic Echo provides us with a 60% buff. With that and the extra 50% from the normal Echo, we could do it. We didn't have any other choice. That is until I stumbled into something. A final glimpse of hope. Oh. Wow, okay. I just skipped a whole phase. It didn't even summon the ads. Okay, this is the best chance I could possibly get. Okay, hold on. We had accidentally found a sequence break. Something I had done in that moment caused an entire set of ads to just never appear. 6 enemies that never got a single attack in. If I could recreate this, forget Epic Echo, I might even be able to go back to level sync. Oh, that sucks. How did that skip happen? That's a very good question. I wish I had any idea. No, this time it did it. What happened? I really don't understand what the difference was. Whatever I did, I need to figure that out and do that again. Is it because I killed Patriarch first? That is the only difference there, isn't it? That time I started with Matriarch instead of Patriarch. The first time I started Patriarch and then I skipped. No, what happened? How did I do that, man? That sucks. So it's time-based, not suffering-based. But try as I might, I could never get it to happen again. At this point, any hope of using this to our advantage today had faded away. What was it? Maybe I was a second off? It was time to fight the boss normally. At 50% echo, we were finally strong enough to kill Xenos in time and enter the second phase of the fight. Selenomancy splits the arena into a double-sided cookie. Standing in either half slowly eclipses the moon above your head, and after 5 stacks, you're given Doom, an unavoidable instant death. To prevent this, we need to constantly swap sides and reset the counter. Then, Anti-Twilight cleanses the moons from beneath your feet. As before, Torment unto Death and Lead of the Underworld tear away at our health. For the second cast of Selenomancy, she adds the Midnight Haze clouds from earlier. Now, while dancing between moons, we had to kill the clouds or suffer 30 seconds of reduced damage and a huge hit to our health. Paraloon marks the end of the second phase, cleansing the arena once more as Tsukiyomi falls to madness. Turning the sky a blood red, we've reached the end. Lunacy is her most powerful attack yet. Her own Akmorn, a party stack that hits multiple times, dealing a grand total of 38,000 damage. Dark Blade slashes away at half the arena, Reprimand deals 5,000 unavoidable damage, and Bright Blade is a mirror for Dark Blade, slashing the opposite side of the arena. Dancing fans fill the arena once more as we're targeted with another Lunacy. The second time it's used, Lunacy adds in a 4th hit, now dealing 45,000 damage with my shields and defensive abilities. And it only gets worse. On its 3rd use, it hits the maximum amount of attacks, 5, for a grand total of 86,000 damage. That single attack, if I didn't prepare for it, could deal 87% of my health, even when I have a 110% bonus. We had seen every mechanic now, but I wanted something more. Sure, I could kill Tsukiyomi if I had the max buffs and Epic Echo, but could I do better than that? What about the weird issue we found earlier? If I used that, maybe we didn't need all of this. My attempts came to an end to chase after that little glimmer of hope. I could probably do this 20% or 30% if I could get that consistently. I spent the rest of the night trying to get the ad skip to work, but nothing. So I went to my Discord and set out a bounty. We had a vague idea of what might be causing it, but I needed to see if it could be done consistently. And in just a few hours, we had it. Almost. My assumption had been correct. To get this skip to happen, it entirely depended on when I killed the first ads, the Matriarch and Patriarch. If I killed the last of those two in the same second the bar hit 28%, the spearmen wouldn't spawn. This explained why I couldn't pull it off at a higher echo buff. I was killing them too fast. Me and my game dev brain have a vague guess at what's happening here, but don't take this as a definite. I don't work on Square Enix products. My guess is 46 seconds into the ad phase is when the spearmen spawn, whether you've killed the first 2 ads or not. It will also spawn the spearmen as soon as the Matriarch and Patriarch die. So, in theory, if we can make both of those checks happen at the exact same moment, instead of incrementing to the second set of ads, it increments by 2 and skips to the 3rd ad, Asahi. The only problem now is doing it consistently. And even for everyone doing the tests, The one thing we all agreed on was there was no way to get this 100% of the time. It happened so rarely that most would only see it once over an entire day of attempts. And through my hours trying, I still couldn't get it to happen again. That fragile hope was snuffed out. But we were still improving. I had gotten to the point now where I could reach Xenos with just a 20% buff. The DPS required to kill him would be the next problem. As soon as he spawned, he raised the meter by 4%. Then, his clash with Gosetsu burned through our remaining time. Stepping out for strength potions, we come back stronger than ever before. Whether I got the ad skip or not, this time, for sure, Tsukiyomi will fall. I'm so sad I couldn't get the stupid Asahi skip, man, but whatever. I'll take it. A victory's a victory, and either way, I'm 30% Echo instead of the 50, so I can be happy with that. Congratulations. We are finished the final trial of Stormblood. You may have seen the video's title and thought that was the frame-perfect boss I was talking about, and you'd be justified in that. I mean, that was basically a frame-perfect skip, but no. There's something much worse than Tsukiyomi waiting for us before the end. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have a chair, and so my desk is not exactly like a standing desk, so for me to play the video game, I kinda have to like get very close to the microphone, hunch over, and then like spider leg grip the buttons. 2 dungeons remain, and with a brand new restriction of no sitting added to the challenge, the burn is unlocked. As per usual, Warrior fears no mob pull, so we rush on to the first boss, Hedatet. This little scorpion is about as easy as it gets. Hellfire shoots a barrage of crystals at their target. Standing behind one of the large rocks protects you from damage and causes the rock to explode. Shard Strike drops crystals onto your head, harming you and anyone nearby. And Shardfall sends a burst outwards from the center. Standing behind the large rocks once again prevents any damage. All of the rocks in the arena explode, and Dissonance forces you to stand under the scorpion, dropping down 4 new rocks shortly after it completes. Crystal Needle is a tank buster dealing 9,000 damage, and that is every mechanic. From the next area, the strange creatures inhabiting this dungeon are replaced with Magitech, broken and battered and posing little threat. Crawling through the wreckage of a Magitech ship, we find the second boss, the Defective Drone. Aetherochemical Coil is a tank buster dealing 9,000 damage. Aetherochemical Residue leaves a pool of acid on the ground, slowing down anyone inside it as the drone jumps to one side of the arena with 5 copies. All but one will dash across the screen, damaging anything they hit. Rockbiter spawns at the edge of the arena, charging up their own dash. Then, he summons a Dreadnought and combines both dash attacks, leaving only a small safe haven. Though annoying, the Dreadnought is weak, and the more targets I have, the more I can heal. Just a simple dance of dodging dashes, the defective drone falls just as easily as Hedatet before it. Out of everything I've seen in this video game, this right here is probably the coolest. Taking in the sights of this ashen wasteland, we have an astonishing 42 minutes for this dungeon. We've reached the final boss, the Mist Dragon. This is like a Monster Hunter intro. Oh my god, it really is a Monster Hunter intro. Rhyme Wraith is AoE for 3k. Frostbite is... Whoa, okay. Oh my god. Just instant death? Okay. Oh my god, you're right, that's gravity damage. For the first time ever, a non-Magitech enemy has dealt gravity damage. 5,500, almost 25% of my health, and there was no way to reduce it. It even goes so far as to damage me through my shield, but this time it wasn't followed up with instant death. The only thing I can assume at this point is maybe I stood in an ice patch I didn't see for too long. Fog Plume drops a ball of ice onto the arena that explodes out in all directions shortly after landing. Vaporize makes the Mist Dragon invulnerable and spawns 3 Draconic Regards around the arena. The longer they live, the bigger the dragon's final attack gets until it eventually takes up every last inch of space. Getting hit by Cold Fog freezes you, gives a vulnerability up debuff, and traps you within a glacial rock. Thankfully, this doesn't require a party member to break me out of it like Titans does, and falls off on its own once the deep freeze ends. Filling Aspiration targets a random player, dealing 5,500 gravity damage and giving them Frostbite, while also spawning pools of ice nearby. Standing in those ice pools kills you, as you saw earlier. Then, the Mist Dragon does that again, this time dealing 7,000 gravity damage with Frost Breath. Finally, Deep Fog reduces your visibility to a small area around you. The dragon hides in the dense fog, dashing across the arena after a short delay. The only way to find it and dodge the attack is to run around until you're close enough to see it. Otherwise, it's a wild gamble on whether or not you get hit. Failing to dodge the attack freezes you just like Cold Fog from earlier. A much more difficult fight than any so far in this dungeon, but we've survived every mechanic all the same, so the Mist Dragon falls, and the burn is complete. One final dungeon stands between us and Shadowbringers. Filled with the joy of victory, we rest. My journey in this home was at its end, and I now had to pack my entire life into a little box and drive for what ended up being 28 hours with 2 little cats in my backseat to a wonderful new home. This is the home where Solo began. This is the home where we started everything, and now it will be gone forever. It was a pleasure to have you here for the final stream of this home. I will see you all, possibly next Thursday. I am going on a 20-hour road trip starting Saturday at midnight, and I will see you soon when I return. I shall see you when I am safely in my new place. Well, goodbye. Upon my return, I awoke to my phone buzzing non-stop. I thought the world was ending. Every person I knew, my entire Discord, every channel, every social media, I was being added and told one thing. The newest patch, 7.2, had released, and with it came a gift from Yoshi P and the entire Final Fantasy XIV dev team. How about now? Is that better? More echoey than in your empty home last stream. Alright, that's significantly impressive. Did I accidentally press the button that makes it terrible? I did accidentally press the button that makes it terrible. How about now? Cat, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that move just broke my mic arm. See, back when I beat Susano, I needed Pictomancer at level 100, but this came with some issues. The biggest of which being, as soon as you had a class at level 100, Wondrous Tales would give you duties and trials from the most recent expansions without restriction. But now, on this glorious day, they changed the requirement. As of 7.2 with the new update, Yoshi P made a change specifically for me. Wondrous Tales books cannot give anything past your main scenario. You've received a journal corresponding. Wait, look at that pop-up. You've received a journal corresponding to your current progress in the main scenario. It can no longer give us Endwalker and Dawn Trail stuff. This is the greatest day of my life. No more desperately calculating odds and second chance points. No more scraping by and throwing out my books. Tears formed in my eyes as I opened the pages and saw dungeons and trials that I could do again. I could do every single dungeon one. Howling Eye, Rama, we get 3 ARR once again? 10 months of struggling with the decision I made, and now I was free. This is especially the best day of my life, because do you know what I saw earlier today? Tomodachi Life is getting a sequel. I had completely and utterly given up hope that I would ever see Tomodachi Life again on the Nintendo Switch, but oh my god, they announced Tomodachi Life 2. What was once a 3-hour grind for Wondrous Tales was now cut down to 45 minutes. Celebration's over. We rushed through the quests to our final dungeon, the Gimlet Dark, and the last fight against Magitech for a very long time. For now, we can skip past these ads as they're just as easy as usual and hit the first boss, the Mark IIIB Magitech Colossus. And from the very beginning, the Gimlet Dark is showing itself to be a completely different beast from the last 2 dungeons. Jarring Blow is a tank buster, dealing 12,000 damage. Moving to the center of the arena, the Colossus begins casting Magitech Slash, slicing the arena into a big pizza and leaving behind a scorched earth in its wake. Standing in those fires will deal heavy damage, but right as it's about to complete the circle, the fires start to go out. As the fight progresses, they'll swing in both directions, one after the other. This slow and easily dodgeable attack gave me time to heal for the real problem. Magitech Ray is a party stack, dealing 15,000 damage without mitigations, and just 30 seconds later, after an onslaught of damage from Cerulean Vent and Wildfire Beam, he uses Magitech Ray a second time, followed up by Exhaust, an easy-to-dodge cast, and a Tank Buster. It took every defensive ability and resource I had to survive this, and after 2 more Magitech Slashes, he'd do it again. This was one of the worst cycles a dungeon boss had ever put me through. Yet again, the curse of Magitech grabs us by the throat. But thankfully, the Magitech Slashes waste enough time that I can get all of my resources back. Colossus down, we move on to a strange encounter. Past the first group of enemies, we reach the fields where Pippin and Lise are waiting for us. This is a strange experience. There are NPCs in my dungeon. This dungeon has forced NPC allies. No matter what I do, I'm stuck with these 2, so for the first time in the entire challenge, I have a reason to use my tank stance. They join me for 2 groups of enemies, then leave as we reach the second boss, Prometheus. As the fight begins, he bores through the ground and reappears within the walls, firing a massive laser beam and piercing a hole through the hard stone. His tank buster, Unbreakable Cermet Drill, deals 10,000 damage. Freezing Missile fires rounds into the air as Prometheus bores down once more, forcing you to dodge proximity AoEs alongside his laser. For proximity AoEs, the closer you are to them, the more damage you do, and every other attack is inconsequential. Compared to the Colossus, this is added to the list of easiest bosses, and we can move on towards the final gauntlet. Once again joined by NPCs Amaric and Connie Senna, the last group of enemies are filled with mini-bosses, from Colossi to Hexadrons, and finally the Rubicatus. At one point, I even attempted to kill Connie Senna by leaving her to fight the enemies on her own, but it turns out that the NPCs are invincible and will just survive at 0.1% HP no matter what. Oh, are you gonna die? That would be great. If I never activate you, will you just die? Come on, she's invincible. The NPC is invincible. My one hope. Unbreakable Cermet Blade has you stand under a shield from Connie Senna, but I stand by my no interacting and just tank the hit. It barely does anything anyway. Then, at 70%, it starts casting Self-Detonate. Lise hits through most of its health, and I'm left to finish it off. Now, the path is open. With 36 minutes remaining before the dungeon kicks us out, we reach the final boss of Stormblood, Anya and Julia Quo Soranis. This is a 1v2, but we start by facing whichever of the 2 sisters we attack first. Anya to start, Julia sits at the sideline, firing 3 rounds of Airsbane at us, as Anya uses her tank buster, Delta Trance, for 5,000 damage. Order to Bombard drops 3 missiles on the arena. Julia casts the Order and knocks us back towards the wall, and Anya casts Angry Salamander, sending a burst of flames out in front of her. Giant X's, Terminus S's, appear at the edge of the arena and fire towards the center after a short delay. And finally, Stunning Sweep stuns you if you don't dodge it, and Artificial Plasma deals 3,000 damage. Anya cycles through these attacks until we get her down to 0.1%, starting the second phase. After a quick match of ping pong with a Terminus Est, they high-five in the center, and Julia swaps in as the new main opponent. Julia's tank buster, Innocence, hits for 5,000 damage as Anya shoots an Angry Salamander from outside the arena. Commence Airstrike drops cerulean tanks from the airships above. Anya knocks you and the tanks away with a roundhouse kick as Julia shoots to set one off. The explosion cascades outwards to the back of the arena. Jumping to the center once more, Julia spawns 4 Terminus Est around her and begins casting the Order, sending them all flying. And then the cycle repeats. Of the two, Julia is by far the easier fight. Dropping to 0.1%, both sisters are defeated, but in a blaze of glory, they begin their final attack. Dodging the Terminus Est one last time, they reappear at the center of the arena. After a brief pause, they drink a potion, set themselves ablaze with power, and become targetable again. Both bosses are back at 20% health and begin casting their Enrage. This was a DPS check. On our first attempt, I managed to kill one as the other is left untouched and finishes casting Imperial Authority. Failing the DPS check was a guaranteed death, and we hadn't even come close. Now we were at an impasse. I couldn't do this level synced as warrior, and there was no way to pull out the red mage level sync again, as the party stacks from the first boss would kill us in one hit. With the one we had killed, we can do some math and assume how much damage we'd need. In total, they both seemed to have somewhere around 70,000 health, meaning we have to do 140,000 damage to clear this Enrage. My first answer to that is Gunbreaker. At level 70, it should have a higher DPS than Warrior. Spending another 600 tomes on a new Gunblade and jumping back into the dungeon to test our burst damage on the first enemies, it was painfully obvious this would get us nowhere. I'm at 50k out of 140k, so I'm a third of the way, and that was most of the burst. This is not enough. Gunbreaker can't do it either. Yeah, Warrior did more. Significantly more. Gunbreaker failing to save us in our time of need, we return again to Warrior and enter the Gimlet Dark on Silence Echo. Being a higher level means we have less crit chance and defense, but gives us access to Inner Chaos. Every time I used Infuriate, it would turn my next Fell Cleave into Inner Chaos, with higher damage and guaranteeing I get a critical direct hit. Even with the weaker substats, this would be a huge upgrade to our damage. From here, there should be no more issues. I even started to use Strength Potion, increasing my strength by 10% for 30 seconds. So, the final fight can come to an end. Wow. Even that's not enough. And 6.8% was the best we could get. The weapon and Silence Echo weren't enough. I needed armor as well, but it's not as simple as I might have hoped. I mentioned at the very beginning, eye level 400 gear should be a huge boost to our power, but not when you actually look at it. Right now, with how insanely difficult this DPS check was, Warrior's Inner Release is our saving grace. For 3 attacks, it guarantees I get a critical direct hit. The damage still has a range, but this essentially is the maximum an attack can do. These attacks will do more damage the higher my critical hit stat, and most of the eye level 400 gear was replacing my critical or direct hit with defensive things like tenacity or useless stats like skill speed. That, plus Inner Chaos from Infuriate giving us 2 more, even stronger hits, I had to prioritize critical numbers over everything else. Which leaves us with only 4 viable pieces of gear for Poetics. The 2 biggest changes were the chest and pants, but for my 6 other pieces of gear, I didn't see any options. And I'm out of armory chest space, so much to chat's dismay, we throw out some cosmetics I'm never going to use and add in our new chest armor. Side adventure jacket, more like garbage jacket. For a brief moment, I dreamt of Omegascape, the raid series for Stormblood. I could sit here and grind out enough Poetics for a full Skaven set. Or we do all of the Omega raids, and then I can grind out the Savages for the last Omega raids to get my 405. If I could clear the final Savage fights, they would give us eye level 405 gear and more access to crit. This was a big commitment, and as much as second chance points weren't needed anymore, they were still useful. So before potentially wasting them and clearing all of Omegascape, we needed to know if I could even clear the Savage fights. Swapping to my main, Xanthor Ultraza, I do the best I can to emulate my Pictomancer's gear with the random armor I never cleaned out of my inventory, and it's not even close. The very first Savage is undoable, let alone the other 3 fights I'd have to do. Back to solo, we're still stuck with the same questions, but instead of sitting and trying to puzzle out my entire gear set, I started with what I knew I could use. Using the first time clears of the Alexander raids from Heavensward, we rack up 500 poetics and purchase our new pants. Once again, not enough to get through. I didn't even need to reach the end to know the difference was minimal. The next option is to reach level 90. From there, I unlock Primal Rend, one of the most powerful abilities a warrior can get. It's basically the same as Inner Chaos. Big damage, guaranteed crit, but this time it's also AoE. Everything except the main target takes reduced damage, but when we're faced with 2 targets for a DPS check, there's nothing better. And leveling means heaven on high. Wondrous Tales would get us 1 full level, but we're level 88, so I need to grind a bit. Not much though. With 1,000,000 experience from every 10 floors, it's only around an hour of work. 1 Wondrous Tales book later. Come on, it can't be 0 lives. It cannot be. We can't allow them to win. My god. We're level 90, and Primal Rend is unlocked. Level 90, baby! And 500 more poetics gets us a new bracelet and ring. With the new gear upgrades and this final attack, this was it. We entered the Gimlet Dark 1 more. Why isn't the music starting? I see. It's because we were still nowhere close. Still 8%, man. Oh, come on. No way, 0.7, come on, man. Oh, that should have been it. That should have been it, dude. Or maybe not. At the very least, we've got some info from this run. From the second the twins become targetable, we have just slightly under 42 seconds to kill both of them. Changing my attacks had given us a really strong run, and this proved to me that it was possible. If we hadn't seen that attempt, it would have ended here, but now, I knew I could do it. One last option remained before Epic Echo, the crafted gear set Rakshasa. It wasn't particularly stronger than my current armor, but I could try and get some extra critical hit from it. Stronger strength potions would also help, but that means I had to finally unlock Flight in the Azim Steppe for some Azim Spring Water. With our grade 3 infusions of strength made, we can move back to armor. Rakshasa seemed questionable at best, pushing me back towards more Skaven gear, but there was one option I completely forgot about. The final crafted gear sets for Stormblood can be upgraded. Trading in high quality Rakshasa gear would get us tokens required to purchase Yama armor. One step up from Rakshasa, and absolutely filled to the brim with crit. Now we can piece together the final gear, a min-maxed, perfect armor set built to give me the best critical hits possible. Yama helmet, earrings and rings, Skaven chest, pants, gloves, boots and bracelet, and a hematite necklace. But there's something I should mention. We do not understand main stats. Strength is a main stat, and every piece of the eye level 400 armor had a higher strength, but only by 3 to 4 at most. And unfortunately, there's no way of knowing how much of a difference 3 strength makes when compared to the extra crit chance. Normally, we're told that higher main stat is always better, but that's most likely referring to a perfect world, where you're constantly healed and fighting over a long period of time. I had 42 seconds to kill both bosses. As of right now, my belief was that crit chance was the most important. With all the hope in my heart, this would push us over the line. But either way, whether it's for the Yama gear or Poetic gear, I need to get tomestones. Yama's secondary component, Domen Ryaku, needed poetics to purchase it, plus some more for the materials I need to craft Rakshasa gear. And, in a worst case, I wanted to have a full set of Skaven gear available to swap over to if my min-max set wasn't working. Now, I wanted a Yama helmet, earring, and 2 rings, but that doesn't mean we have to make those in Rakshasa gear. I only need the token, and I can get those tokens from any Rakshasa gear. So we opt to craft Rakshasa Hakamas of Striking, as it uses the least amount of legendary materials, and we'll only need 2 of them to get everything we want. Heaven on High gets us 30 poetics per run, but my fastest run is 20 minutes, and I need 2,135 poetics, so this was a much bigger grind than I was ready for. Then a chat member mentioned something. An idea so crazy, it might just work. Rather than spend a literal 24 hours running Heaven on High, we can hop over to the Oceanic Data Center, the quietest server in the entire game. And once we're there, we can look for an empty instance and use a completely new method to earn poetics. Eureka. If you have never experienced it before, welcome to the way that you got relic weapons in Stormblood, Eureka. Okay, stop. This video is long enough. I'm not going to explain Eureka to you. The plan was to get strong and kill the low-level notorious monsters, Eureka's version of Fates, for poetics. It did not work. At least I managed to get my own solo Eureka instance a lot easier than expected. Moving on. For now, we bide our time using the weekly Blue Mage rewards, Wondrous Tales, and the rest of the Alexander raids for poetics. To make those Hakamas of striking I mentioned earlier, we only need one legendary material, Stardust Cotton Balls, but that also means getting flight in another zone, Yangsha. Emergency Skaven gear purchased, all that's left is my Yama. Yangshan Cotton Balls, Blood Hemp, and a grade 4 Reisui of Strength makes our Stardust Cotton Cloth for 2 Rakshasa Hakamas of striking. And trading those in for 42 Rakshasa tokens gets us our final pieces of gear, the Yama rings, earring, and helmet. And just to be absolutely sure, we slot in some materia for the highest possible critical chance. This was it. It's time to end things. No way! Come on! 0.1%. At most, 700 health. I failed by just 700 health. Swapping back and forth between my armors, I couldn't recreate it no matter what I tried. I had locked in to a very specific and consistent attack pattern. It's long since it spans over 40 seconds, but I'll show it here on screen. Though, no matter what I did, I couldn't get back there. For a brief moment, I tried to change things up. Primal Rend was a massive boon to our damage, so what if I could use it twice? As of right now, Inner Release goes on cooldown for 60 seconds, so I only get the one as soon as they spawn. But if I used it early, I could start the fight with Primal Rend and finish it with a second one later on. Though this didn't seem like it would work. The timing was absolutely insane. It took 46 seconds for them to become targetable, and I only had 30 seconds to use Primal Rend. Plus, I was throwing out the 3 guaranteed crits from Fell Cleave if I did this. There just wasn't enough time to use them all at the end of the fight. Well, there was, but trying to line that up with your attack cooldowns and get it perfect 30 seconds in advance wasn't feasible. But then neither was this. 8 hours of attempts, and the twins still claimed victory. At this point, I needed to rest, but what would the next day even be? Just more of this? More bashing my head against the wall with a combo that saw 0.1% one time? Hoping and praying to the 12 for luck? No, I had to do something different. I had to try. At this point, I was locked in to the critical gear. Rather than using the full set of Skaven, I would use the min-maxed set I had made with the Yama gear earlier. And somewhere between 29.5 to 29.8 seconds before the twins were targetable, I'd use Inner Release and start the fight with Primal Rend. I was desperate, so I bet everything I had on the one perfect run. Now, I just had to do it. Finally! Ah! Oh, my heart. Oh, my heart. I did it! I did it! It's done! Done, dude! That's it! Okay! I wish I had a heart rate monitor so you could experience what I just felt. I must have been minimum 150. There's no way it was anything less than that. I feel like I'm about to pass out. Heart pounding out of my chest, throat raw from the screams of victory. The dust began to settle as I soaked it all in. I had won. The boss died as the screen began to fade out. I expected this to be difficult, but that was an entire new level of difficulty. I needed one run where I could be frame perfect, and that was it. Yet another foe vanquished. This one felt like so much more. This wasn't just my victory over the twins. This was my victory and farewell to Stormblood. Something that should have been impossible from the very first trial was finally over. Stormblood is now truly complete. With a final playtime of 826 hours, Season 3 has come to its end. For all the joy we hold now, we march on towards an even greater threat. The one fight I'm always asked about. One that may just be worse than Susanoo. But no matter the foe, we push on with our heads held high. I've already done the impossible once. Now, I'll just have to do it again.